Hello everyone. This is my real voice. No AI, no fake sound. On this channel, I share powerful sci-fi stories about humanity, space, war, hope, and survival. These stories are about humans standing strong when the universe turns dark. Going to be your narrator. If you enjoy real storytelling, real emotions, and epic sci-fi, subscribe, support the channel, and let's explore the stars together. Now, let's get into today's story.
The Grand Chamber of the Intergalactic Council floated in the cold silence of space, wrapped in a bubble of artificial gravity and golden light. 12 alien species sat in tall, curved seats, their faces calm, their voices lazy with comfort.
For over 200 years, peace had ruled the galaxy, or so they believed.
At the center of the room, a small human figure stood alone. He wore a plain gray uniform with no rank, no badge, just a name tag, Elias Vaughn. He didn't speak. He just stood there, quiet, while the council laughed. "Look at him," chuckled the purple-skinned Zorati delegate, waving a three-fingered hand. "One human. No warship. No army. What does he think he can do?" The Velnari ambassador, her silver eyes narrow, added, "Earth vanished 30 years ago. They're extinct. This must be a clone. Or a ghost." Elias didn't move. He just stared at the giant screen behind the council. It showed empty space, just stars, and far in the distance, the blue-green dot of a dead world. Earth. Then, without warning, a single ship dropped out of warp. It wasn't big. Not like the massive dreadnoughts the council used. It was sleek, black, and sharp, like a knife made of shadow. No lights. No signal. Just silence. The laughter stopped. "What is that?" asked the Krellin delegate, his voice suddenly tight. No one answered. Every eye locked on the screen. The ship hung in space, motionless, pointed straight at the council station. Then, a sound filled the chamber. Not through speakers. Not through comms. It came from everywhere at once. Deep, calm, and cold as space itself. "Exterminate them all." That was it. 3 words. No name. No warning. Just an order. The room froze. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. 30 years ago, the council had voted in secret. Earth was too dangerous, they said. Too emotional. Too unpredictable. A cancer in the galaxy, the Zorati had called it. So they sent the peacekeeping fleet. Orbital strikes. No ground troops. No warning. Just fire from the sky. Billions died in one night. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled. The planet went dark. And humanity? Gone. Or so they thought. Now, 30 years later, one ship. One voice. One order. Panic spread like fire. "Scan that vessel," shouted the council leader, her voice cracking. "Where did it come from?" The tech officer's hands shook as he checked the readings. It matches old Earth design. Pre-war. But upgraded. Way beyond our tech. "How?" cried the Velnari. "They had no industry left." Elias finally spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. "You thought we were animals. You thought we'd die and forget." He looked each delegate in the eye. "You were wrong." Suddenly, the main screen flickered. New dots appeared, far at the edge of the system. 1, then 100, then thousands. Warp signatures. All human. All silent. The council stared in horror. No engines roaring. No threats shouted. Just thousands of black ships appearing out of nothing, forming a perfect ring around the system. Watching. Waiting. "No," whispered the Krellin. "It can't be." Elias turned to leave. "You called us monsters for fighting back," he said. "Now you'll see what real monsters look like." He walked out as alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed. Delegates shouted over each other, some begging for weapons, others for escape pods. On the screen, the human ships did nothing. They didn't fire. They didn't move closer. They just stayed there, still as statues, patient as death. Because they didn't need to rush. They had waited 30 years. They could wait 30 seconds more. Outside, in the void, the Black Fleet waited. Not for orders. They already had them. Exterminate them all. Back in the chamber, the Zorati delegate sank into his chair, his face pale. We didn't just kill them, he whispered. We made them gods. And far away, deep in the human command ship, a woman watched the Council's panic on her screen. Her face showed no joy, no anger, just duty. She pressed a single button. Across the fleet, weapons powered up. Not to destroy planets. Not yet. Just to remind the galaxy of one thing. Humanity was back. And this time, they wouldn't ask for peace. They'd deliver judgment. The panic in the Grand Chamber hadn't stopped. Delegates shouted, guards ran in circles, and emergency lights pulsed red like a heartbeat gone wild. But outside the station, the human fleet stayed silent. No movement. No signals. Just watchful eyes in the dark. No one knew what to do. Until the lights went out. Not the emergency lights. The entire station's power. Every screen, every door, every weapon system. Dead. Then, a single line of text appeared on every display in the chamber. You used our own satellites to spy on us. Now we use them to shut you down. The Council froze. Decades ago, after Earth fell, the aliens had taken old human tech, whether satellites, comms relays, even broken GPS nodes, and repurposed them. They thought it was harmless junk. They were wrong. Deep inside each device, hidden in lines of old code no one understood, was a sleeper command, waiting. And now, it had woken up. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. On trade hubs, on military bases, even on peaceful garden worlds, human-made tech turned against its new owners. Defense grids failed. Ship engines locked. Secure doors opened on their own. The humans hadn't fired a single shot. They didn't need to. Back in the council chamber, a young aide named Kira, barely 20 summers old, with soft green skin and wide eyes, raced through the dark corridors. She wasn't important. Just a note-taker. But she remembered something others forgot. Before the attack on Earth, humans had sent thousands of ships into deep space. Not warships. Evacuation vessels. Refugee arcs. Most were lost, or so the record said. But Kira had read the raw logs. Some signals never stopped. They just went quiet. Too far to hear. Now she wondered, what if they didn't vanish? What if they just hid? She reached the old data vault, a room no one used anymore. Dust covered the consoles. She wiped her hands and typed in a forgotten access code. The screen flickered to life. And there it was. A map. Not of the past. Of now. Thousands of dots, tiny, faint, spread across the dark zones of the galaxy. All labeled with old Earth symbols. Project Phoenix. Silent Armada. Ghost Fleet. They'd been building in secret. For 30 years. Not cities. Not farms. Warships. Not just any warships. Ships with AI minds, armor that healed itself, and weapons that didn't explode. They unmade matter. And they were all heading toward the core systems. Toward the Council. Toward home. Kira's hands shook. She hit transmit, sending the file to every Council leader's private pad. But as the data sent, a new message popped up on her screen. You found us, little watcher. Good. Tell them we're not here for war. She blinked. We're here for receipts. Then the screen went black. On the bridge of the lead human ship, Admiral Mira Chan stood with her arms behind her back. She was tall, lean, with short black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. On her screen, she watched Kira's face through a hidden camera in the data vault. She's smart, Mira said to no one. A voice replied from the shadows. Calm, synthetic. Should we silence her? Mira shook her head. No. Let her spread the truth. Let them all know what's coming. She walked to the window. Outside, the ghost fleet floated like a storm waiting to break. We're not monsters, she whispered. We're mirrors. Back on the council station, the lights came back on. But everything had changed. The delegates weren't laughing anymore. They were scared. Because now they knew, humans hadn't just survived. They'd prepared. And worse, They'd been watching. One of the older delegates, a gray-scaled elder from the Jorvan Empire, stood slowly. His voice was quiet but sharp. "They're not attacking our armies. They're attacking our control. Our lies." He turned to the others. "This isn't invasion. It's justice." A cold silence filled the room. Then, alarms blared again, but this time, not from weapons. From inside. A door hissed open at the far end of the chamber. No guards. No soldiers. Just one figure walking in. Human. Female. Wearing a simple black uniform. No weapons. She stopped in the center. Looked around. Smiled. The smile wasn't kind. It was knowing. "You all voted," she said. "Every single one of you. Yes to burn Earth. Yes to kill children. Yes to erase a species." She held up a small device. "This plays your voices. Your votes. Your crimes." She pressed a button. And suddenly, the chamber echoed with their own words, recorded decades ago, clear as day. "Yes. Do it. They're too dangerous to live." The delegates covered their ears. Some cried. Others stood frozen in shame. The woman lowered the device. "You thought we were gone." She looked each of them in the eye. "Now you know we were just waiting." Then she turned and walked out, unstopped, unchallenged. Because no one dared touch her. She wasn't a soldier. She was a judgment. And the real punishment hadn't even started yet. The recording kept playing. Over and over, the voices of the council's own leaders filled the grand chamber, cold, calm, and sure of themselves as they sentenced billions to death. "Humanity is a virus. Burn their cities. Leave no survivors. They don't deserve a second chance." Now, those same leaders sat in silence, heads bowed, faces pale. Some trembled. Others stared into space, as if trying to forget what they'd done. The human woman who played the recording was gone. But her message remained. "You voted. You chose. Now face it." Outside, the ghost fleet still hovered. Still silent. Still waiting. Then, movement. A single human ship broke from the formation. Sleek. Fast. Unmarked. It flew straight toward the council station. Not to attack, but to dock. No warning. No request. The station's doors opened for it automatically. The human code still controlled everything. From the ship stepped 3 figures. All in black. No helmets. No insignias. Just humans with tired eyes and steady hands. They walked through the halls like ghosts. Guards stepped aside. No one raised a weapon. No one even spoke. They entered the grand chamber. The delegates didn't move. Didn't run. They just watched. The lead human, a man with a scar across his cheek, held up a small screen. On it, names scrolled slowly. 12 species, he said, voice flat. 73 delegates. 52 voted yes to eradicate Earth. He looked up. 52 of you will die. Gasps filled the room. But we didn't all agree, cried the young Velnari ambassador. Some of us tried to stop it. The man nodded. We know. That's why you're still breathing. He tapped the screen. We have every vote. Every secret meeting. Every lie you told your own people. We don't guess. We know. Then, without warning, the lights dimmed again. On every wall, a new image appeared. Live feeds from across the galaxy. A human drone ship hovered over the capital city of the Zorati homeworld. Below, crowds gathered, confused. Then, a voice boomed from the sky. Not angry, not loud. Just clear. Zorati Council Delegate Vrax. You voted yes on Cycle 221 to destroy Earth. Your sentence is death. Before anyone could react, a thin beam of light shot from the drone. Not fire. Not explosion. Just a flash. And Delegate Vrax, watching from the council chamber, screamed as his body vanished. Not burned. Not torn apart. Gone. Like he was never there. Silence. Then chaos. Delegates ran. Some begged. One tried to hide under his seat. But the humans didn't chase them.
They just stood there. Your people will see the truth now, the scarred man said. Not just that you killed Earth, but that you lied about why. On the screens, riots began. On Zora-T, on Krellin, on Jorvan, citizens saw the vote records. Saw their leaders cheer while Earth burned. They weren't angry at humanity. They were angry at their own. Back in the chamber, only the no voters remained seated, shaking, but alive. The young aide, Kira, watched from the doorway. She hadn't voted. She wasn't old enough back then. But she remembered her teacher saying, "Never let fear decide your morality." Now she saw what happened when it did. The scarred man turned to leave. But before he did, he looked at Kira. "You helped spread the truth," he said. "That matters." Then he stepped out. Minutes later, the human ships began to move. Not all of them. Just a few. They flew toward the home worlds of the yes voters. Fast, quiet, precise. One by one, the guilty disappeared. No cities destroyed. No civilians harmed. Just the guilty are gone. It wasn't war. It was surgery. Cut out the rot. Leave the rest. On the command ship, Admiral Mira Chen watched the reports come in. 28 eliminated, said her AI voice. 24 to go, she replied. She didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. This wasn't revenge. It was balance. On her screen, she saw the council leader, the one who had begged for mercy, sneak onto a private shuttle and flee the station. Her officers asked, "Should we stop her?" Mira shook her head. "Let her run." Why? Because fear is louder when it spreads. The shuttle jumped to warp, heading for the powerful Krylos Empire, a war-hungry race that once ruled half the galaxy. Mira allowed a small, cold smile. Good, she thought. Let them come. Let them think they can protect a murderer. Let them think they can challenge humanity. She turned to her crew. Prepare the fleet. Phase 2 begins soon. Outside, the ghost fleet shifted, just slightly, like a sleeping dragon turning in its sleep. And far away, the fleeing council leader didn't know she wasn't escaping. She was bait. The council leader's shuttle tore through space, engines burning hot. Her hands shook on the controls. Behind her, the grand chamber was falling apart. Delegates screaming, systems failing, justice raining from the sky. She didn't look back. She had one goal: reach the Krylos Empire. The Krylos were old, powerful, ruthless. They once ruled 1,000 worlds with iron claws and plasma whips. Even the council feared them. If anyone could stop humanity, it was them. Her shuttle dropped out of warp near Krylos Prime, a massive red planet wrapped in smoke and steel towers. Warships filled the sky like angry hornets. She sent her message the moment she arrived. Humanity is back. They're killing leaders. They're unstoppable. Help us or you're next. The Krylos didn't hesitate. Within hours, their high warlord, Gorvok the Unbroken, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Maw, a ship so large it had its own gravity storms. He laughed when he heard her story. "Humans," he growled, his voice like grinding stone. "The soft-skinned creatures who cried when their cities burned? They're bugs. Not a threat." But the council leader insisted. "You don't understand. They don't fight like us. They don't want land. They don't want power. They want payback." Gorvok's eyes narrowed. He didn't believe her. But he loved war. And this sounded like fun. "Then let them come," he roared. "Send 10 legions. Crush their little fleet. Bring me their admiral's head." The Krylos fleet launched, 100 warships, each armed with planet-cracking cannons and armies of armored berserkers. They flew straight toward the council system, broadcasting a challenge on every channel. "Come out, little humans. Let us see your teeth." But the human fleet didn't move. Not a single ship turned to face them. The Krylos laughed. "They're hiding." Then, something strange happened. Instead of weapons, the humans sent data. Thousands of files burst across the galaxy, sent to every planet, every station, every rebel group that ever suffered under Krylos' rule. Inside, proof. Proof of Krylos' war crimes. Mass graves on Xylos, 7. Children sold as slaves on Viral.
Entire cities erased for refusing to pay taxes. The files were detailed, verified, impossible to deny. And they came with a message. You thought only humans were monsters? Look at your own masters.
On a mining colony on the edge of Krylo's space, a tired worker opened one of the files. Saw footage of Krylo's soldiers burning his home village 10 years ago.
His family inside. He didn't say a word. He picked up a rusted plasma cutter and walked toward the Overseer's tower. On another world, rebels who hadn't fought in years found new fire. They raised old flags, broke open weapon caches, chanted one name, humanity. Not as enemies, as liberators. Back on the Iron Maw, Gorvok watched the reports come in, world after world rising up, burning Krylo's banners, killing his officers.
What is this? He bellowed. I didn't even fight them yet.
His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Drex, spoke softly. They didn't attack your fleet, Warlord.
They attacked your empire.
Gorvok slammed his fist on the console.
Then we strike harder. Burn every rebel world. Show them fear.
But it was too late.
His own ships began to mutiny.
Crews refused orders.
Captains shut down weapons.
One entire battle group switched sides.
Why? Because their families were on those rebel worlds. And now they knew the truth.
Far away, on her command ship, Admiral Mira Chen watched it all unfold. Her second officer asked, "Should we engage the Krylos fleet now?"
Mira shook her head. They're already defeated. They just don't know it yet.
She leaned forward. "Send the final message." A moment later, every screen in the Krylos fleet lit up.
Not with weapons. Not with threats.
Just Admiral Myra's face. Calm, focused, eyes like ice. She spoke only 7 words.
We don't fight armies. We burn thrones. Then the feed cut. Silence.
On the Iron Maw, Gorvok stared at the blank screen. For the first time in his life, he felt something new.
Fear. Not of weapons, but of ideas. Because armies can be crushed. But truth spreads like fire.
And once it starts, no throne is safe. In the chaos, the council leader tried to sneak away again. But Krylo's guards caught her.
You brought this on us, they shouted. She begged. I only wanted help. Gorvok himself dragged her to the airlock. You didn't bring help, he snarled. You brought the end.
He threw her out into space. No suit, no mercy. As she floated, gasping, she saw something that made her blood freeze.
In the distance, human ships were moving. Not toward the Krylos fleet. Toward Krylos Prime. They weren't here to fight. They were here to show the people who really ruled them. And that was worse than any bomb.
The Krylos Empire was burning, but not with fire.
It was burning with truth.
Rebel uprisings spread like wildfire across every Krylos-held world. Citizens tore down statues of Gorvok. Soldiers handed weapons to rebels. Even the Royal Guard turned on their own commanders. And through it all, the human fleet never fired a single shot. They just watched and waited. Now, the same silence fell over the Intergalactic Council. The surviving leaders, the ones who had voted no, tried to fix what was broken. They sent messages, pleas, offers of surrender. No reply came. Not a word. Not a signal. Not even static. It was as if humanity had vanished again. But they hadn't. Their ships still orbited the Council's homeworld. Dark, still, watching like statues in the void. This silence was worse than weapons. Worse than threats. Because silence meant judgment was still coming. Inside the Grand Chamber, the mood had changed. No more shouting. No more blame. Just fear and shame. The young aide, Kira, sat alone in the data vault. She'd been tracking everything. The uprisings. The Krylos collapse. The Ghost Fleet's movements. And she noticed something strange. The human ships weren't targeting military bases or weapons factories. They were moving toward archives, courthouses, broadcast centers. They weren't here to destroy the galaxy. They were here to expose it. Her console beeped. A new file had arrived, sent directly to her. No sender ID. Just a label, the Silence Protocol. She opened it. Inside were thousands of recordings. Secret meetings. Hidden orders. Private messages. All showing the Council's darkest secrets. How they poisoned water on peaceful worlds to test population control. How they sold alien children to slavers and called it relocation. How they started wars just to sell weapons. And at the center of it all, the vote to destroy Earth. Kira's hands trembled. This wasn't just proof. It was a weapon. And humanity wasn't going to use it to kill. They were going to release it to everyone. On the human command ship, Admiral Mira Chan stood before a large screen showing the Council homeworld. Her face was calm, but her eyes held pain. A voice behind her asked, "Why not just end it? One strike. It's over." Mira turned. "Because if we kill them all, we become what they feared. Monsters who kill without reason." She pointed to the planet below. "But if the people see the truth, they'll do the judging themselves." She paused. "That's justice, not revenge." She gave the order, "Deploy the cubes." Across the fleet, small drones launched, not missiles, but smooth black boxes no bigger than a fist. They fell toward the planet like silent rain. Each one carried the full truth. Every crime, every lie, every name. And they wouldn't land in government buildings. They'd land in squares, schools, markets, where the people could find them, where the truth could spread. Back on the Council world, citizens noticed the black cubes first as strange debris. Some thought they were bombs. Others ignored them. But then a child picked one up. It lit up in her hands, and played a recording of her planet's own leader laughing as he ordered a village wiped out, for fun. She ran home, showed her parents. Within hours, crowds gathered around the cubes, watching, listening, crying. Anger rose, not at humanity, but at their own leaders. "How long have they lied?" people shouted. "Why didn't we know? They made us believe humans were the monsters." By nightfall, protests turned into riots. Government buildings were stormed. Leaders were dragged into the streets. And still, the human fleet did nothing. No attacks, no landings, just silence. Because they didn't need to fight. The truth was doing the work for them. In the Grand Chamber, the last council leader, the one who had voted no, stood alone. He watched the riots on his screen, saw his friends, his allies, being arrested by their own people. He turned to Kira, who had just entered. "Is this what you wanted?" he asked quietly. Kira shook her head. "I didn't want any of this. But they did this to themselves." The leader sighed. "We thought we were gods, making choices for the galaxy." He looked out the window, at the silent human ships. "But we were just bullies with big chairs." Then, a new alert flashed. The human fleet was moving. Not away. Closer. They stopped just above the atmosphere. Hovering. Waiting. Kira's heart pounded. What are they doing now? On every screen across the planet, a final message appeared, not in angry words, but in soft text. "You judged us without trial. Now the galaxy judges you. We are not your executioners. We are your mirror." Then, the human ships went dark again. But one ship stayed behind. Smaller than the others. No weapons visible. It began a slow descent toward the capital city. And someone was inside, walking toward the ruins of power. Alone. The black cube sat in the middle of the capital square, still glowing softly. Around it, thousands of citizens stood in silence. No riots now. No shouting. Just faces full of pain, anger, and something new, clarity. The truth was out. And it changed everything. Across the planet, governments collapsed in days. Not by human weapons, but by their own people. Police turned in their badges. Soldiers refused orders. Mayors opened prison doors and walked out, heads low. The ones who had voted yes to destroy Earth were found hiding in luxury bunkers, false identities, or trying to flee on private yachts. But there was no escape. Their own neighbors dragged them into the light. Trials began, not in courts, but in town squares, on live feeds, in every language. Did you vote to burn Earth? Yes. Why? Because we were afraid. And that fear had cost billions their lives. Now, it cost them their freedom. High above the planet, the human fleet still watched. Silent. Still. Only one ship moved. It landed gently in the center of the capital city. No fanfare, no weapons drawn. The ramp lowered. Out stepped a single figure. Not in armor. Not with guns. Just a woman in a simple black uniform. Short dark hair. Tired eyes. No rank. No title. It was Admiral Mira Chen. She walked through the empty streets. Broken glass crunched under her boots. Abandoned flyers fluttered in the wind. Posters of old council leaders peeled off walls. No one stopped her. No one attacked her. People just watched. Some bowed their heads. Others wept. A few knelt, not in worship, but in shame. She didn't speak to them. She just kept walking, toward the grand chamber. Inside, the last council leader, the one who had voted no, waited alone. He stood by the shattered window, looking up at the human fleet. He heard footsteps. Turned. Mira entered. She didn't look at him. She looked at the empty seats. "The ones who sat here killed my world," she said, voice quiet. "Not with hate. With paperwork. With a vote." The leader nodded. "We thought we were protecting the galaxy." "You were protecting your power," she said. "There's a difference." He had no answer. Mira turned to leave. But then she stopped. "Where's Kira?" "The aide?" "She's safe. Watching the trials." Mira almost smiled. "Good. The future needs people like her." Then she walked out. Outside, the crowds parted as she passed. No one asked for mercy. No one begged. They knew mercy wasn't hers to give. It belonged to the galaxy now. At the edge of the square, she stopped, looked up at the sky. Her ship waited. But before she left, she turned to the people and spoke, just once, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "We didn't come to rule you. We didn't come to save you. We came to remind you. Genocide never stays hidden. And those who order it will always be found." Then she boarded her ship. The ramp closed. The ship rose into the sky, smooth, silent, fast, and vanished into the stars. Within hours, the rest of the human fleet followed. One by one, they turned and jumped to warp. No victory music. No final warning. Just gone. As if they were never there. But the galaxy would never forget. On every world, the black cubes remained, playing the truth over and over, teaching children what happens when leaders choose fear over fairness. The Intergalactic Council was disbanded. In its place, a new agreement formed, not by empires, but by ordinary people. One rule above all. No world may be erased. No voice may be silenced. And at the center of every meeting hall, a small plaque now hung. It showed a blue-green planet with a single line beneath it. "Remember Earth." Back on her command ship, far beyond known space, Mira stood alone on the bridge. Her AI asked, "Mission complete. Where to now?" She looked at the star map. Thousands of uncharted systems. Dark zones. Silent worlds. "Somewhere quiet," she said. "Where we can rest." But then she added softly, "And watch. Because peace doesn't last when no one guards its memory. And if the galaxy ever forgets, humanity would return. Not as saviors. Not as monsters. But as consequence." 3 weeks had passed since the human fleet vanished. The council homeworld was quiet now. Not the cold silence of fear, but the soft hush of healing. Cranes lifted broken stone. Gardens grew where tanks once rolled. And in the rebuilt central square, the black cube still played its message. But now, people stopped to listen, not to scream. Children sat near it, eyes wide, learning a lesson their parents never knew. Power without justice is just violence with a title. In the ruins of the Grand Chamber, Kira, the young aide, now stood as one of the new planetary coordinators. She wore no fancy robes, just a simple tunic and a small badge that read, Truth Keeper. She wasn't a ruler, just a reminder. And today, she had one last duty. At the edge of the city, a single human ship had returned. Not the whole fleet. Just one. It landed without warning, without sound. The ramp lowered. Out stepped the same woman from before, Admiral Mira Chen. But this time, she carried no message, no threat, just a small metal box. Kira walked to meet her. They stood face to face in the morning light, human and alien, silence between them like old friends who'd seen too much. You came back, Kira said. Mira nodded. Had to check if they listened. Kira smiled faintly. They did. The trials are over. The guilty are in prison. The new council, it's made of farmers, teachers, engineers. No generals. Good, Mira said. That's how it should be. She held out the metal box. This is for your archive. Kira opened it. Inside was a data crystal, and a small earth flower, dried but still red. What is it? She asked. The last recording from Earth, Mira said. Made seconds before the bombs hit. Not of screaming. Not of fire. She paused. Of a mother singing a lullaby to her child. Kira's eyes filled with tears. Why show us this? Because you need to know, Mira said softly. We weren't monsters. We were people. Like you. She looked around, at the rebuilt homes, the clean streets, the children playing near the old council gate. You thought we came for revenge, she said. But revenge ends with blood. We wanted something that lasts longer. What? Kira asked. Memory. Mira turned to leave. If you remember Earth, you'll never let it happen again. Kira called after her. Will you come back? Mira stopped. Didn't turn. Only if you forget. Then she walked up the ramp. The ship lifted off. Slow, graceful, final. This time, it didn't vanish in a flash of light. It just sailed into the sky, and kept going, until it was a single star among many. Years later, the story spread across the galaxy, not as a warning, but as a lesson. Schools taught it. Elders told it by firelight. And every year, on the day Earth fell, every world held a minute of silence. Not for the dead, but for the truth. Far beyond the edge of known space, in a hidden system wrapped in asteroid belts and old solar dust, a fleet slept. Black ships. Quiet engines. No signals. On the bridge of the lead vessel, Mira Chan sat alone, watching a star chart. Her hair was grayer now. Her eyes still tired, but softer. A young officer entered. Admiral, all systems stable. The Ghost Fleet is ready. She nodded. Good. Let them sleep. She turned off the main screen. But before she left, she touched a small screen on her wrist. It showed a live feed, not from war zones, but from the Council homeworld. Children planting trees where bombs once fell. A Krylos and a Velnari sharing food at a market. Kira, older now, speaking to a crowd, never again. Mira smiled. Just a little. Then she whispered the words she'd carried for 30 years. We were never the monsters. We were the ones who remembered. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright. And humanity watched. Just in case.